Welcome to the Underground, the Steel City Underground, the black and gold standard for Pittsburgh Steelers coverage. Now, here's your host, Terry Fletcher.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the WTF, What the Football podcast by Steel City Underground. My name is Terry Fletcher. Well, what a week 9 we've had. Oh my gosh. Starting with the Steelers, I'm so happy that we won on Thursday. It made for a very nice weekend. And just to be able to, win by 4 points, our 2016 over Tennessee was fantastic, especially since offensively, we don't have that great of an offense right now. So without our defense, I'm not sure what's going to happen. But, in the words of LeBron James, he said, well, I'm like the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think he was referring to the Lakers. He said, we're not the most offensive team out there, but we still have a winning record. And yes, we do at 5-3. I'm a little concerned, and this is definitely what the football moment for me as far as George Pickens. He was open several times. Kenny did miss a couple of them. Even Big Ben pointed out on his podcast. But, this is a growing offense, and he's got to understand that. And he's also got to understand that it's not just about him, as Hines Ward mentioned to him this week, that this is not the time to start trouble. And when you follow and unfollow people on your social media accounts, you're just Antonio Brown 2.0. So we need George Pickens. He's one of the most dynamic, pass catchers out there. He made his own mistakes in the game by, having that touchdown taken off the board because he didn't drag his foot, which he's been great about that. So I'm not sure what that was about, but really not understanding his own role in why he didn't get any opportunities there. So the ones he did get, you've got to make sure that you are doing what you can to make the most of them. And that means dragging those toes. I think there was another catch that was towards the sideline that, again, he got 1 foot in. So George, we need you. If you hear this, you're out there. We need you. Please get your head in the game and, be there with your teammates like they all are. And so now moving forward into the rest of the weekend, boy, did we have some crazy games. I don't know how many of you are watching the Red Zone, but oh my goodness. We had a 39-37 Houston-Tampa Bay game that was just crazy and a crazy finish. So C.J. Stroud, obviously, we lost to Houston with that rookie quarterback, great guy, I shouldn't say great guy, I don't know him, but he's a great quarterback, and he had the most passing yards by a rookie with 470. He topped his old record of 433, and he's just crazy. He's also the third quarterback in NFL history to throw at least 470 yards and 5 touchdowns with 0 interceptions in a game. And who do you think did that before? Ben Roethlisberger. So yeah, he's, and the other one was Y.A. Tittle. I have no idea as well. That's definitely WTF. But I think the most WTF thing about that game is their kicker. And I'm not laughing because he was injured. So Fairbairn was injured. But they're basically like, okay, they went to the bench and said, raise your hand if you can kick. And so they had to use a running back to kick. So let me see if I can say his name right. Dare Ogun Bowell, who he did end up kicking a 29-yard dart field goal in the fourth quarter that obviously to 39-37 was key. And and that's what the ending game score was. And by the way, that game score, 39-37, has never been seen before in NFL history. So that's a little trivia there. But they had to go for 2-point conversions twice because they didn't have a kicker. And so if you watch the game at all, or you go back to see highlights, watch a running back trying to kick a ball to kickoff. And that means no punts, no kickoffs, no extra points, no field goals. So it was a crazy game when we're talking about WTF weekend. Now let's talk about the Minnesota Vikings. I would be remiss if I didn't get a shout out to our former backup quarterback, Josh Dobbs, who then went to Arizona, and now he is in the Vikings. He was actually traded on Tuesday and met with the team on Wednesday, just starting to go through practice reps this last week. And he was not supposed to start. So they were going to have the other backup start. I actually don't have his name right now, but I'll have it for you. And he had no snaps from the center. He'd never thrown passes to anyone. He didn't even know their full names. And so we see him on the sideline trying to show him what his cadence is with the offensive line so that they didn't move forward. I mean, it was seriously just the coolest thing ever, because the first quarterback went out in the first quarter with a concussion. But after a few hiccups and a safety because he got sacked in the end zone, and just a lot of things that happened in that game that were just like, oh my gosh, this is going to seriously be a nightmare. He pulled out a win. I mean, it was crazy. Oh, the starter was supposed to be Jaron Hall, because remember, Kirk Cousins is out with a torn Achilles. Justin Jefferson's out, and they're hoping he comes back soon. But you just can't write the Vikings off, because now they are 5-4. But Josh Dobbs, he basically came in when he got traded on Tuesday. He wasn't supposed to play, found himself on the field after an injury. And yes, he did have got off to an ugly start with 2 lost fumbles, also taking that safety. But his clutch play in the fourth quarter and coming in also in the second half, the defense forced 2 turnovers that allowed Minnesota to get back in the game. They were even behind 21-13, but you just can't write off those Vikings. And the Falcons, oh man, it was so embarrassing for them. I mean, think about it. Minnesota down to their third string quarterback that just got to the team just 4 days ago, and they let Dobbs drive down for 75 yards for a game-winning touchdown in the final 2 minutes. Talk about a meltdown. And after the game, I loved some of the comments that Dobbs said. He shouted out Coach Tomlin, said, "No one cares about your circumstance, just what you do with the opportunity when those circumstances come up." He also said, somebody asked him, what is it like going into a place where you don't know the playbook? He said, it's like taking a test for Spanish where everyone says it's a basic test. And then you sit down and somebody whispers to you and says, actually, it's an intermediate advanced test. And you're like, oh, great. And you only studied the basics, and then you look at it and it's in French. So I thought that was a great comment as far as what he had to do. But that 31-28 win over Atlanta, that was something to see. It was really an awesome game. I found myself absolutely rooting for Dobbs. And for anyone out there who wasn't, you're not my friend anymore. You have to root for him and just see what he does next week. They already said that he will be the starter, of course. So if you know me at all, I don't like talking about Baltimore, but boy, did they just trample over Seattle. 37-3. It was bad. I mean, the Ravens seem to have the NFC division, wrapped up. They just really understand what's going on there. Luckily for us, they don't have the AFC record that they do in the NFC, but man, the Seahawks just look terrible. And I don't care what anybody says, I'm not sold on the Seattle quarterback. So we'll see what happens there. They only had 151 yards of total offense, and the defense couldn't stop the run at all. They had almost 300 yards just on rushing. And Lamar Jackson didn't have much because, you kind of look at it from fantasy football as well, because you know how many points they score. He only had 14 points. That's not somebody who's doing all kinds of scoring and things like that, but he was moving the ball, and I think they're going to be a tough team for sure. So Kansas City over Miami. Well, that game was in Germany, so those of us here in California were up at 6:30 in the morning if you're diehards watching that game. Now, I thought this was going to be a good game. I mean, they're, in the same division, and it's definitely going to be kind of interesting to watch. But, well, wait a minute. The Dolphins are in AFC East, and the Chiefs are in AFC South, right? So, or West. So they're in the AFC, but not the same. So correct me on that. But the Chiefs, yeah, they won, but I don't know what's going on with Patrick Mahomes. But between his, interceptions, and he's not protecting the ball. One thing there that was really unfortunate, Travis Kelce was definitely blanketed. He only had 3 catches for 14 yards. Trust me, I have him in one of my fantasy leagues. And Mahomes was spreading the ball around. He had 9 different pass catchers, that he was able to use. And yes, they did win, but it was an ugly win. And nobody knows ugly wins more than the Steelers. But this one was extremely ugly. Now everyone's saying, oh, Cleveland's back. They're so great. Beat their 27-0 over Arizona. Arizona had their 4th backup quarterback now. His name was Clayton Tune. Yeah, he wasn't a spark. He had 3 different turnovers. Plus, he couldn't convert a single first down. So until they hit, I think they didn't hit 60 yards total. So the Browns defense basically just took them to task. They sacked Clayton Tune 7 times, and I could see him saying, I'm over this. This is not what I signed up for. So we'll see what happens on that. Now, Green Bay beat the Rams. I'll say that again. What the football? Green Bay beat the Rams. Now, Matthew Stafford was out, and the Rams looked absolutely lost on offense with their backup, Brett Ripien. He threw for just 130 yards, and I don't know what that was. Now, they did sack Jordan Love on the Packers 4 times, but the Rams are just not good. They're just not good. Now, the Packers, are they good? No, they played a crappy team. So when the Steelers come to play them in Week 10, I just feel good about that game. Don't want to jinx it, but I feel good about that game. That's all I'm going to say about that. But it was definitely crazy. New Orleans 24-17 over Chicago. Yeah, they both played like basic teams. I mean, they've got Taysom Hill in the Saints, and they use him interchangeably with Derek Carr. It's really just kind of an interesting thing to watch. Nobody else does it. So, he's definitely that red zone guy. They have him coming in. He throws touchdowns, he passes touchdowns, and he kind of substitutes in with Derek Carr on and off. And I know he hates it. You can always see when Taysom Hill comes in, Derek Carr, they look to, and he's like, yeah, we're doing this again. But, it's winning games for them, so we'll see what happens. But Chicago had Tyson Bagent, and he turned the ball over 4 times. It was a turnover weekend. Not apple turnovers, not peach turnovers, not blueberry turnovers, but just football turnovers. It was awful. It was just absolutely, okay, there it goes again, another one. Now let's talk about Vegas. Now, they had a coach firing. So Josh McDaniels, after what we hear, is the most hated coach in the locker room, and says he was the problem in Las Vegas. And so now we've got a new coach there. And it was interesting because they had Aiden O'Connell, who I picked up for my fantasy because I did have a flex with Jimmy Garoppolo, who's been benched. But, they finally got Josh Jacobs involved. He had 98 yards, but they didn't really give Aiden a chance to throw. They just played it safe in a game. He threw for 209 yards. And the new interim coach, Antonio Pierce, he basically just kind of played it safe. And he knew he was playing a really bad team in the Giants. And they had to start a rookie quarterback. And now we find out that Daniel Jones now has a season-ending knee injury where he tore his ACL. So who knows if they're going to go and pick up a veteran quarterback that's sitting in a booth somewhere, calling games. So otherwise their season is pretty much over. It's pretty much over. But Philadelphia, Dallas. So what the football's going on there? I would give both those teams a B. So, Philadelphia 28-23 over Dallas. Dak Prescott did throw for 3 touchdowns and over about 375 yards, but they just could not score. When they were 1st and 5 on the Eagles' 6-yard line with 27 seconds left. They had a false start, a sack, an incomplete pass, a delay of game, and then Dak threw a short pass to CeeDee Lamb there was no way he could catch it. And it was short of the end zone, and it ended up as in a fumble, as Lamb did try to make the play, but it just didn't work. They failed to convert on 4th and goal from the 1-yard line earlier in the half. And they had another turnover on late down. So all I can say is they can't beat good teams. If you look at their record, they might beat bad teams, but they can't beat good teams. So Philadelphia, they're now, what are they now? 8-1? Yeah, they're the team, and I think in the NFC that's really going to be tough to beat. And I don't even think they've played their best football yet. The AFC North was very strong week 9. Everybody won. But the AFC East, so Buffalo, who's in the East? Buffalo, Miami, the Patriots, and then the Jets, they all lost. So it was a mess over there. But Cincinnati 24-18 over Buffalo, boy, I don't know what's going on with Josh Allen, but he has thrown a interception in his last 5 games, in each game. So I think his coach is going to be very vocal, I would think, on what he needs to do to fix that. But definitely Bengals dominated that game. And just kind of pulling back around to the Steelers game, I was just so impressed with, the Steelers going out. They ran the ball early and often. And we saw Jalen Warren with 11 carries, 88 yards, Najee Harris, 16 carries, 69 yards. And they weren't able to stop him, which I thought was a really good thing. And, Kenny only threw for 160 yards, but he did have some big throws. The touchdown pass to Deontay Johnson. And what the football, good for Deontay. That was his first touchdown pass in 2 years. So last one he caught was from Big Ben. So I was really happy with him. As long as our defense stays healthy, and we did lose, I think, one person. I have to think about who that was. We're going to be really, there as far as playoff contention. I know people don't think it. I know people said they don't think that's going to happen, but I don't know. I'm feeling very positive about this team because we find ways to win. And yes, I'm going to say we because I love my Steelers, and we find ways to win. You just can't say anything more about it. And so hopefully coming into week 10, it'll be quite the week. We are going to be hosting Green Bay, and let's just get another win under our belt because we've got a pretty decent schedule. The only concern I have is Ohio. So basically Cincinnati and Cleveland coming. We go there. And I think Cincinnati's going to be tough. I think it's going to be a toss-up about Cleveland. So we'll see what happens. But everyone, thank you for listening to the WTF podcast. Make it a great day and a great rest of your week.
We would like to thank you for listening and remind our listeners to follow us on social media and our website, www.steelcityunderground.com.